So this is the how to improve your squat series number 3, and the last one, spinal mobility and integration coordination. Put them all together. So the first one was the ankle mobility, and then I showed you the 2 exercises to improve flexibility of the calf muscles, and then the ankle joint mobility. And then the second video was on knee and the hip mobility. Then I showed you the 2 exercises, actually a lot of movements of the hip joints done in 2 different positions. One lying down on your back, and then the other one is on your hands and the knees, quadruped positions. And both of these exercises are designed to improve the quality of the movement of the hip joints, and then also the coordination between the hips and the knees, which are all important and then necessary for you to do the squats really well. And this is the last piece, and last piece is the exercises. I will show you the exercises to improve the mobility of the squats, the mobility of the spine that is needed for the squats. Okay, so let's get to the exercise. Oh, by the way, if you haven't watched the first 2 videos, and I will put the link and the links down below, so check them out later. And then also, if you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, and please consider subscribing so that you get updates and a notification from YouTube when the new videos are uploaded. All right, so let's get to it. So you're going to get on your hands and knees, right? And once again, ankle positions. You can do either way, this way or this way. I probably would do it in both ways so that you can also work on the mobility of the ankles and then mobility of the toes this way, and then flexibility, and then the being able to flex and plantar flex your ankle joints and doing this way. So I'll probably do both ways. Anyways, that's not really the focus of this exercise. This exercise first is the focus is on the mobility of the spine. So I'm going to turn slightly sideways so you can see it. So as a warm-up, first I'm going to start out with the arching and rounding my spine. Okay, just like a cat and cow poses in the yoga, arching my back, rounding my back. And what I'm focusing with this movements is I am looking for the distribution of the extension and then the flexion throughout the entire spine. So I'm trying to distribution movement proportionally, more or less proportionally throughout the entire spine, so that I'm not doing all the movement with my head, with my neck, or with my lower back. I'm trying to involve all parts of the spine equally into the rounding movement as well as the arching movement. So mobilizing the whole part of the spine. Okay, I'll do this one. Always the focus is the quality and not too much on the quantity. Okay, how far you can move. It's much better to focus on the quality to improve and learn something that learns about the way that you move. Okay, maybe if you're very, very good at moving your lower back and into the arching, but yet you may not really move all that well through the thoracic spine. So in that case, it's better to reduce the amount of the arching movement through the lower back, but trying to distribute that movement into a little bit higher up in your spine, so thoracic spine, so that they can get mobilized a little bit. And then going the other way, maybe you have no trouble rounding your thoracic spine, but maybe the lumbar spine, maybe not so well. And then you can try to do that better with your lumbar spine, so that distribution of the movement is more proportional and more equal. Right? Done 20 times or so, and then take a little pause and rest. Then I'll get into the next one. And so the next one, in the previous video, I did the rocking movement, right? And in the previous exercise, in the previous video, hip and the knee section, I didn't really specifically talk about the position of the spine. But this time, I'm going to coordinate the movement of the spine with the movement of the hips. So I'm going to do, as I'm rocking my hips back, I'm going to round my spine, making my spine round. Then I'm going to move the hips forward, the pelvis forward. Then I'm going to arch my back, combining the cat and cow with the rocking movement. Okay, assuming that I've done 20 times, and then the next one I'm going to change it up. And when I'm rocking my pelvis, instead of rounding my back, I'm going to arch my back as I'm rocking back. Here. A lot of people will find this way much harder than the other way, and I'll tell you why. And then as I'm rocking my pelvis forward, and then I'm going to round my spine. Okay, so we talk about doing the squats. We want to be able to move into more of these directions. Then I'll tell you why. So I'm talking about specifically going to the full squats. All right. So the full squats, and then imagine that you really you are very stiff in the spine, and you don't have the mobility to move the spine into these directions. Okay, get a little closer here. Okay, so what happens is when your spine can only move this way when you squat down, and it doesn't have the ability to extend. Where is the center of the mass, right? So the base of support is between my feet, okay? So I have my feet here, and then around here is the base of support. But because I don't have the flexibility and then mobility in my spine and my pelvis and the hips, and then I'm not able to allow my spine and allow my chest to come over and over the base of support, then I need to hold onto something to keep myself from falling down, because my center of the mass is behind my base of support, and that's really, really hard to do the squats, right? Unless I'm holding onto something. But if you do have the ability to move the pelvis and the spine, and then your chest and your thoracic spine, and can move over the base of support, then you're not falling backwards. Then you can actually squat comfortably without feeling like you need to hang on and hold on to something. So that's why the mobility of the spine and the mobility of the hips, and then the coordination between the hips, pelvis, and the spine are crucial, and to do the really well, to do the good squats. That makes sense? So that's the first exercise, and then the second exercise is here. Similar to the first one, but except you're standing now. Standing on your feet, and then I'm reaching my hands down to the floor. I'm keeping my knees a little bit bent, okay, depending on how flexible your hamstrings are. And if you're not able to reach your hands down, you can use the books or the yoga blocks to raise the surface so that you can place your hands on the blocks so that you don't have to reach your hands down that farther. Okay, but I'm going to do this way here. Okay, I'm keeping my knees a little bit bent. So I'm starting to do is cat and cow movement, rounding my spine and then lowering my head same time. And then I'm straightening my knee a little bit as I'm rounding my back and lowering my head. And then starting to arch my back and starting to lift my head a little bit, not too much so that you don't strain your neck. Okay, at the same time I'm arching my back and then lowering my pelvis a little bit, so I'm going down towards the floor. Okay, and then alternate and gradually increase the range. Going here, arching and lowering the pelvis and raising the head, rounding, lifting the hips, pelvis, and lowering the head down. Alternate. Here. Okay, so here I am, I'm squatting down. So work your way up to this point. It's a strenuous position and doing maybe 10 repetitions, that's fine. Pay attention to breathing. It's easy to do, easy to hold your breath and work hard. And then maybe your face is turning red and then you're not really maximizing this exercise. So be sure that you can't breathe and then continue to do the movement. So don't really make such an effort to do that. And find a way that you can do this movement relatively comfortably. And then still not done yet, and that's the exercise number 2. But then from here, there's a little bit of variation, so I'll show you that. Okay, so once I get down here, okay, maybe your hands on the yoga blocks. Okay, maybe you're not all the way down. And by the way, if you're still having a hard time with the ankle mobility so that your heels cannot stay down, what you might want to do is, you don't want to really be in this position. So you can raise the surface by adding a towel. You can roll up a towel or you can use a book or something so the heel is also contacting something, okay, instead of your heels up in the air. Anyways, so here, okay, and my hands on the floor, and from here what I'm going to do is I'm going to move my spine and twist my spine to look around here, look around, okay, and I'm turning my head and turning my spine, and also look up a little bit and look around, mobilizing the spine in all directions. Look down a little bit, underneath, under the armpit, look over the shoulder, look over the other shoulder. So just explore the movement by looking around the environment, so you're not looking down only, or you're not looking just ahead. So be able to move and mobilize the spine, and until you can turn your head and to look at any place. Okay, so play with that a little bit. I didn't really give you a specific repetition, so just do it. When you get tired, just take a break. And it's just a nice way to really mobilize the hips and the spine in multi-directions. And from there, last one I'm going to do is I'm going to do some arm reaches. I'm going to reach my arms in the different directions. I can reach a little forward, a little out to the side, a little out to the side, and behind, underneath. Okay, so play with that. You can see how far and how many directions you can reach. And then lastly, I'm going to step back. Lastly, from here, I'm going to walk out and walk my hands back to the squats. Walk my hands out to the side, or even behind. I can go behind and come back. Okay, so you're kind of moving in and out of the position, and to coordinate your spine, coordinate your pelvis, coordinate your hips and the knees, and then all together. And then you're mobilizing the hip joints, the knee joints, and the ankle joints, and the spine in all different directions and all possibilities. Okay, So that's it, and that's the end of the improve your squat series. And so let's recapping all three videos quickly right now. So the first video was the ankle mobility, and I talked about the importance of the ankle mobility in the ability to do the squats, because if you don't have the mobility at the ankle joints, okay, I'm just kind of pretend this is my ankle joint, and then if it doesn't bend well, and then of course it's gonna influence above the ankle joint, which is the knee joint, and then the hip joint. Okay, so then I showed you the two exercises of the to improve the ankle mobility, and specifically the first one was to improve the soft tissue flexibility, is the calf and Achilles. Then I showed you the way to improve that. And then the second exercise is I showed you self-mobilization of the ankle joint, because the joint, even though your ankle or the calf muscle may be adequately flexible and then the long, yet your ankle joint may be very stiff, and then it doesn't really move well, and then that can still give you trouble with the squats. So I showed you the way to mobilize your ankle joint by yourself through the exercise. So that's the first video, and then the second video was the hip and the knee mobility. And then I showed you two exercises and the progression of each exercise, and to improve hip mobility mostly, and then also the coordination between the hip and the knee through the two exercises. The first one was doing the exercise on your back, lying down on your back, and moving hip into all different directions, flexion, extension, rotation, and then combining all the directions to do the circles. And then the second one was the on your hands and the knee position, or it's called the quadruped position. You're doing basically the same movement of the hip joints in all directions, but you're loading the hip joints in that position, and then you're doing the same similar movements, and to mobilize and improve the mobility and improve the quality of the movement at the hip joints, and also improving the coordination of the hip and the knee joint in that position. And so that was the second one. And then today's video, which is the last one of the series, integration and also the spinal mobility. And then I showed you how to why is it important to mobilize the spine? Why is it important to have good mobility of the spine, and in order to do squats well? Okay, and then I showed you two exercises, or the variation and the progression of the exercises, to improve spinal mobility. And at the same time, you're really integrating all the joints and mobility of the spine with the movement and mobility of the hip joints, knee joints, and then the ankle joints. Okay, just much like what you had to do when you do the squats, because like I said, none of those joints work in isolation when you're doing the squats. They all have to integrate together, right? And otherwise you won't be squats. And that's why the coordination is probably the most important thing, okay? Because just because you have perfect flexibility of all the joints, it doesn't mean that you can't do the squats well, because the squats certainly require really good coordination. Okay, so, and that's what this last video is all about. Okay, I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you find this is helpful. And also I just want to mention to you that it takes time for actually the body to change, and although it does change and improves over time, but I would not expect that you do these exercises 20 repetitions and a few times a day, and all of a sudden, and next week, and then you'll be able to do a perfect squat. So it takes a time. So, yeah, but stick to it and do it every day, and consistency is the key. If you do it every day, and I guarantee you, in a week, and in 2 weeks, and in a month, in a couple months, and I guarantee you that you're going to do the squats much better than you're doing today. Okay, so give it a try, and then please give me your comments and things you like, and things that worked for you, and things that didn't work for you, and I'd like to know. Please let me know, and in the comments section, and please. And I would again remind you, and if you haven't subscribed to this channel yet, and please consider subscribing, and that's it. All right, and so I'll think about more videos, and I know the more videos are coming up, but I would appreciate your feedback, and if you you'd like to see some videos, and please give me feedback, and so I can work on those too. So okay, thank you very much and for watching, and see you in the next video. Bye bye for now.